You're listening to the Junto Podcast, a podcast about leadership, faith, community, and pretty much anything else that you want to talk about. Visit us at www.juntopodcast.com. That's JUNTO podcast.com. Thanks for stopping by and enjoy the show. Episode 82 of the Junto Podcast. Welcome back. It's great to be with you today. Heather, how you doing? How you feeling? Good to be with you. Come on.
Good. Feeling refreshed. Feeling good.
Yeah.
Ready to get back in and get going.
Yeah, you know, we're coming from the beach, so we've had an awesome week of R&R. Lots going on in the world, and thought we'd get back with just some practical conversations. You know, we always get good feedback when we talk about things like mental health or relationship issues or even personality things that we do. And if you've never joined us, we are the Junto Podcast. That's right, the Together Podcast. We're getting better at that.
Yeah.
But we always talk about different topics, leadership, community, unity, all those things typically framed around a perspective of faith. And we find ourselves talking a lot about mental health, personality things, and today we're kind of sticking with that same vein. And Heather, what are we talking about?
Today we are talking about codependency and dependency. As far as relationships, what are the indications? What are the challenges? All of the above.
Yeah. This is a fairly interesting topic here when it comes to dependency. Of course, for me, just being practical or just, I guess, my first thought, not even being practical, but just thinking about this topic, first of all, there is some degree to which we do depend on others, to which we depend on people. You know, when we're young, we depend on our parents, and when we're married, we may begin to depend on our spouses. But when does that take, not a turn for the worse, but when does that turn into an unhealthy type of relationship? And hopefully today, that's what we're going to try to unpack. So, initial thoughts?
No, I think for me, what pops into mind is when yourself is changed. When you're changed because of your reliance on someone else and like your nature, and kind of an addiction is what we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Yeah.
It sort of morphs into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So
very interesting. Well, cool. Yeah. Well, give us some info. Yeah.
Okay. So codependency itself is not recognized as like an actual disorder, but it is linked to dependent personality disorder.
Oh, wow.
DPD.
DPD. All right.
Which is defined as a pervasive, excessive need to be taken care of, leading to submissiveness and clinging behaviors, with fears of separation beginning by early adulthood. And there are actually some indications of that.
Wow. DPD.
People, so we can go into those.
Yeah, that's a trip.
DPD.
Everything's got an acronym these days.
It does. It's easier to
DPD,
remember.
like what is going on?
Yeah.
So it's a thing. It's a real thing.
It's a thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. You want to talk about some of the indications?
Well, let's do that. Yeah, because this, I'll be the first to say, like, a lot of this information is new to me, and I don't know, it's probably new to you as well. But so we're learning with you guys, and hopefully this is going to be an eye-opener.
Maybe we're learning that we may have some
codependency issues. Let's find out. Come on.
All right. So difficulty making everyday decisions without input, advice, and reassurance from others.
Wow.
This is just a codependent person, okay? We're going to talk about relationships here in a little bit. This is just an individual, okay?
So these are signs or symptoms.
Indications that you or someone you know may have an issue with codependency.
Wow.
Needing others to assume responsibility for most major areas of life. Difficulty expressing disagreement with others out of fear of loss of support or approval.
Wow.
Difficulty initiating projects or doing things independently. Well, because you just don't have the self-confidence or the motivation, right? Like your energy, you got to get it from someone else.
Right.
Going to excessive lengths to obtain nurturance and support to the point of volunteering for unpleasant things out of fear of rejection or disapproval.
Wow.
That's terrible. Feeling uncomfortable or helpless when alone because of agitated fears of inability to take care of yourself.
Wow.
There's two more. Urgently seeking another relationship as a source of care and support when a close relationship ends. I've heard of
Interesting.
folks that like they
don't like being alone.
They don't.
Yeah,
they just got to have someone, even if it's
exactly
not
right.
a healthy someone.
Yeah, that's right.
Unrealistically preoccupied with fears of being left to take care of self.
Oh, wow. Fears of actually having to take care of self.
Right.
For me, just thinking about the things that you, and I know you're going to expound on some of that, but so in gist, if I had to sum this up, someone that is codependent is basically somebody that does not want to take care of themselves, like they don't want to have the responsibility of
making decisions
and doing things like that, and they're constantly needing someone else. So that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so this article, let me just put this in right here, is by PH.D. Gregory L. Jantz. He's actually the author of this article that we are using today.
Awesome.
This resource. Awesome resource. So it's kind of like constant support and nurture is what I think of. And even to do the minuscule things. Where should I work? Should I be working? Making decisions. What should I do with my life? What's my next step? Like if there's not someone there telling them this, and this, they're just like lost.
Yeah. And my mind immediately jumps to parenting, because think about that. I think that we as parents can create everything you just said.
Yeah.
You think about a child who's going out to get a first job, or maybe they're moving into another phase of life, and you've been there to basically walk them through every phase. And now it's like they're unable to do things or transition healthily, because parents can be that type of, at least, I know we have a tendency to be, but I think there are a lot of people like us who find it hard to let go to some degree, and to actually let your kids suffer and let them actually try things. And if that means failing, well, so be it. That's where the growth happens. So that's kind of one of the thoughts I had when just hearing you say that.
Definitely. And I think there's a natural, like that. I think that's a natural thing for us parents to rear and bring up our children and help them with the steps, because their brains are still developing. And so a lot of the decisions that they would make early on, we know are not the right ones for them.
Right.
And so the natural thing is, okay, well, you learn and you grow, and then supposedly you can make those decisions for yourself when you grow up. And I think for others, it's harder to let go. But I think it's also, there's a balance between growing up, making your own decisions, but still going back and honoring and respecting your parents.
Yes, that's right.
Advice.
Right.
Because they're going to give good, sound advice for the most part. They love you. You got good parents.
And that's healthy. That's
right.
Those, that's the way a parent-child relationship is supposed to function, right?
Right.
We will always be there as a support. But then at some point, it's like they become the main driver of their life, and we're here in more of a support role. So, very interesting stuff.
It's good stuff. Now, moving on to codependent relationships.
Relationships, yes.
Okay. So, in a codependent relationship, the dependent person exhibits many of I'm going to give you some characteristics here in a minute.
Yeah.
They're actively or passively supported or expected by another person. So this is the difference in just the codependent individual and now being in a codependent relationship. Okay. So focuses attention and effort on solving the problems of the other person.
Wow. Gotcha.
Takes responsibility for meeting the other person's needs and puts those needs above self. Okay. Feels personally responsible for outside events and circumstances. Feels responsible for fulfilling the expectations of the other person, and a failure if that does not happen. So this is an unhealthy relationship.
Right.
Basically.
Goodness.
These characteristics. Hyper aware of the feelings and needs of the other person, but unsure of those in self.
So this is a person who is, has essentially an
This is
excessive
the
need.
dependent person exhibits these characteristics.
Wow. Interesting.
Towards the other person.
Right. But you
Okay.
would think that the dependency, it seems like the dependency
Would be the other person.
would be right,
But it's
because
the
their dependency
need.
is focused on them. It's the need to
Right.
take care of or to fix or to. Now that is wild. Think about that. When you think about dependency, it's like you would be expecting the other person to do these things to you, but in this regard,
And maybe those expectations are from the other person, and this is what is stemmed.
How they
however
respond.
it works
Yeah.
out. I mean, I think that there can be two people
both
that are,
codependent.
in opposite ways.
Yeah,
depending
exactly.
on which way that swings. Considers the opinions and feelings of the other person as greater in value than self, with a high need of validation. Adapts behavior and appearance to the desires of the other person. Has extreme anxiety at the thought of being alone or of separation.
Wow.
Unable to create, maintain, or defend appropriate interpersonal boundaries. And here's a few more. Is unfamiliar with fearful of appropriate and healthy intimacy. Derives positive feelings about self exclusively from the other person. And harbors unrealistic expectations of self and abilities will attempt to manipulate and control people and situations to avoid or deny reality.
To avoid, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So this is some deep, like this is almost, I know you said this isn't a disorder on its own, but it is part of
It's linked to
the DPD,
dependency personality disorder.
So very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm learning all kinds of stuff here in terms of codependency and what this might look like in a relationship. And crazy. Did you want to expound on any of those? Or
Well, not on any one particular, but I
Okay.
did want to go into the need for this code-independent relationship.
Right.
We talked about addiction, that it kind of looks like and has the same characteristics of addiction, like somebody
Right.
that's addicted to some of these, as far as taking responsibility for fulfilling the expectations of others. Maybe you're addicted to I have to make this person happy. I have to get this person's approval or this group's approval. Addicted to, well, how does this person feel? I want to make sure that, just it's an addiction. It's unhealthy.
Well, and I'm thinking too, when you think about that, maybe all of these are maybe they are an attempt to maybe gain approval, or maybe they feel like it brings them security. Like, okay, if I keep doing this for a person, then, they're not going to leave me, or they're going to accept me, or they're going to, include me. And so I can see how someone who's having, let's be honest, there are insecurities out there, and not everybody is fortunate enough to be in community. Maybe they don't have a lot of familial relationships. Maybe maybe they had a terrible upbringing, so they don't really know how to even do relationship. And this is one of the ways where they feel accepted. And it's like,
Right.
I have to do this. I have to do these things in
Yeah.
order for me to feel accepted, or I'm just not going to be able to fit in, or they're not going to accept me. They're not going to love me. And so that goes way deeper than, as you mentioned,
Oh,
just,
definitely.
yeah.
I think what you said there is big as far as the community aspect. And we are created to commune and be in fellowship. So
sure.
there is that need for being around people, having not just the approval of people, but feeling secure and safe
Absolutely.
and having support. And since not everybody has that, I feel like it's easier, or it would be easy for someone to fall into one of these codependent relationships
absolutely.
and just be that type of person who needs that approval, because they don't want to be alone. They don't want to
Right.
feel lonely. So it's fulfilling. There's a void there. There's an emptiness, filling it with another person or people.
Well, and see abusive relationships, and you wonder why does the person, I don't know what that was, but why does the person stay?
Right.
Why do they continue to be with the person who is?
Why not just leave?
Right. Why not just leave? Why not just leave? But seriously, it goes deep, because there's all these feelings that are involved, and a lot of these codependency traits that we just described could be part of that. And it's a very hard thing to do when you feel like, I'm not going to be accepted anywhere else. I may never find another relationship. I may never find anyone. And to some degree too, I think there is a genuine love. You can be abused and still love your abuser. I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but it happens every single day. So very, very complex situation. And I know we probably took it in a direction that the magazine, or the article rather, isn't even talking about. But when you think about codependency and things of that nature, man, it can go a lot of different directions.
Definitely.
So
definitely can. It makes me feel bad for people. And even I read some of these things myself and thinking about our relationship. I mean, we've been
100%.
together 22 plus years, 3, whatever. So there are some dependencies there.
100%.
We have grown to know each other and like some of the same things. So like, of course,
most of the same things.
We're morphed, you know.
We are one.
So in a sense, we are codependent, especially having children. I think it's natural to be dependent upon each other.
And you just don't want to be without me, is what it all boils down to.
What it is.
I mean, that's
you
what
just won't leave me alone.
Well, that's true too.
More.
But what would happen if I left you alone? See, you would hate that worse.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, she would. Trust me, she would. She would.
Let me read this.
Okay.
Because we always bring it back to faith, of course.
Every time.
And then I want to, after I say this, I want to go into like some helpful things, encouragement. Okay. So the biblical admonition to love your neighbor as yourself presupposes you first know and have the capacity to love yourself. Yeah. A dependent person, or someone diagnosed with dependent personality disorder, DPD, does not have a healthy sense of self. Instead, they look to other people to tell them who they are. A codependent relationship is created when a dependent person enters a dysfunctional relationship with someone else. So that statement does not have a healthy sense of self. Instead, they look to other people to tell them who they are.
Wow.
I'm thinking about your message series coming up.
Yes.
Identity.
Whole month of August.
The whole month of August.
I'll be preaching on identity. So.
And how much do we every day get told who we should be?
That's right.
How we should be, everything other than in Christ.
Yeah.
All the other stuff.
Yeah,
you should be this. You should do this. This is how you should think. This is what, it's too much.
Well,
so I'm excited about that series.
Well, yeah, and not even who the world is telling us who we should be every day, but who our past tells us we are. The mistakes that we've made, the traumas that we've been through, maybe some experiences that we've had that have marked us and scarred us in a very real way. And those things always creep into our minds and things too, telling us, well, you're never going to be anything more than that, or what has happened to you, is always going to define you. And so those are things too that we think about, and you think about all these codependency issues and all the mental health things. I think it's all very, very closely related. And that's why we always bring this thing back to a perspective of faith, because we know as believers that the Word speaks into all of it. Yes, we still live life, and we still have to bear the burden and walk through things in the world, but at the end of the day, we know that we can have peace, and that we can begin to love ourselves and have relationship in a healthy way where you're not codependent. Yeah, you realize that it's not perfect, but you're able to begin to see yourself and see yourself the way, maybe not see yourself the way Christ does, but at least have the knowledge that you're loved by God, that you're accepted in spite of everything.
Right.
And that's reassuring.
And instead of trying to fill that void, the relationship with us personally, with God, with someone else, another human being who is not perfect.
Just as broken.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
So, when working with someone to recover from their dependency patterns, especially with a codependent relationship, a challenge may arise when the other person is not sympathetic or helpful toward the goal. The cords of codependency may be strong, making the task of untangling self from the other more difficult.
Wow.
So the relationship is codependent because the other person derives perceived benefit from the unhealthy characteristics of the dependent person.
Wow.
So even if the dependent person is trying to seek help, staying in that relationship from the one who's been on the other end of getting and sucking dry and just using the other person, that's a task.
Yes, it is. That's very challenging.
Remembering that a person who is dependent already feels worthless and often helpless. So going into counseling, like if you're trying to advise someone or counsel someone or help someone seek counsel or get out of this codependent relationship, this going into counseling could be viewed as a defeat or further proof of the dependent person's worthlessness. So that in and of itself saying, well, if I need counseling, then I'm a failure. I'm doomed.
We all need counseling.
That's the sign. There's the proof. There's that I'm just completely helpless right there. So providing encouragement and support is vital, as well as calling out and complimenting the person's honesty and bravery in working through these issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I agree with all of that, but I wanted to just say real quick, my view on counseling has changed so much.
Yeah. Me too.
Anytime you go through any type of class or any type of certification to do any specifically Bible counseling, the first thing they'll tell you is everybody needs counseling, right? And even what makes someone a good counselor is the fact that, they are able to be in a good, healthy place to even provide counseling. So if there's a stigma in your life and you happen to listen to this and you're thinking, man, I've always viewed counseling as complete admission that I'm a failure. Well, it's not. It's not. It just means that you're human.
More and more that it's becoming just the opposite.
Yes.
People are realizing, it is.
That's because people have normalized it to some degree by sharing their experience and saying, I go to counseling, I go to therapy.
That's my counselor.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's not this big stigma. But yes, I can see that in terms of what you were reading in terms of dependency, how someone, in their mind, they're like, oh gosh, it's just proof right here that I have a big problem. And
definitely. You do have a big problem.
Yes, I do. I'm looking at it.
I was going to say you get in your own way.
I'm looking at my big problem right now.
Yeah. Okay. So first, the priority of work must first be on healing a person's core sense of self.
Yes.
Because it even goes into talk about how going to a counselor and seeking that counselor can also become the codependent relationship.
We go into that a lot in counseling, is that there are times where they get attached to the counselor. They begin looking to the counselor to ask every question, what do I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And then that becomes another, that's a whole other can of worms. And it's funny you said that because I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
And when I was going through those Bible certifications, that's one of the things they talk about. Be careful because there's a tendency for people to get attached to the counselor.
Yes. So that's the number one. That's the priority, is healing the person's core sense of self.
Wow.
Because without that and just giving great advice and giving direction and guidance, that's going to just start a whole nother cycle.
Yes.
Of dependency.
Wow. That's exactly right.
Jeez.
It's true.
Us human beings are something
We're jacked
else,
up, man.
We are. I mean, it's just, and it's the thing about it is it's all a natural thing because we were created to worship, not each other.
That's right.
Not ourselves.
That's right.
Not anything, but to worship God. And so feeling that with any of those other things is where we get off track.
That's exactly right.
Jeez.
Well, speaking of on track and getting on, what are some things we can do? Because I know you said that you were going to give us some tips. Well, so what are some things, maybe if we've realized there are some codependent traits that we have, or maybe those of others? Maybe you're in a codependent relationship right now, but you're not the one that's codependent, and you're battling. You're like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this much longer. Or maybe you're the one that has the codependency issues. What are some things?
Yeah. So first of all, seeking help. Okay. Realizing that there's an issue is the thing. And like I said, healing one's core.
It's got to be about the core.
And it has to be about the person's learning and understanding. That's the emphasis, and not on instruction or directing, because then you're just feeding into the same patterns and causing more patterns.
That's right.
There. And also recognizing that with this codependency, there can also be struggles with depression, anxiety disorders, all the things that we've always talked about before, obsessive compulsive disorder traits, all those things, substance abuse.
Right.
People will self-medicate.
Yes.
Hey, I can't figure this out. So
humans are good at doing that.
Right. So those are the main things. But then, of course, bringing it back to our faith.
Amen.
A sense of self shredded by dependency and codependency can only be knit back together through a healthy relationship with God and Christ.
That's it right there.
The dependent assumption that they are not enough is valid. That they are not enough is valid alone. We are not enough.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're not. You can't say, oh, you're good enough, or you got this, boo, or you. No, we don't.
There is no 5 steps to the best you.
No. We are meant for something more and feel it on a visceral and spiritual level.
That's right.
We're not meant to be alone. Like I said, we're meant to be fellowship.
That's right.
Communal beings. We were created for relationship, spiritual relationship. Love, approval, acceptance, validation, assurance, relief, and significance are all human needs found in Christ.
Only.
And as Christians, we are... that's what we're supposed to do, is spread that good news.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. It's like as we begin to become more healthy and we move out of a sense of codependence from others, we then move into a dependence on Christ. Right. And that is where we want to be. We want to depend on Christ. Yeah. We want Christ to be our strength and our joy. And when we do those things, it's crazy how yourself begins to line up. You begin to, you may still not like things about yourself, but you know that you're a child of God and that you're in Christ and you can rest in His love. And that's what happens. You move out of that codependence of others and move into a dependency in Christ. And to me, that's a very healthy, that's a healthy place to be.
That's the place to be.
That's right. That's right. That's what we're striving for. That's what we're all striving for.
Right. Yeah,
that's
we boast in Him.
That's
not
right.
Ourselves, not on any good counseling advice or direction or any of these awesome resources.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all in Him, because that is the only way to feel that within us.
The only way.
It's put there naturally, so we got to quit going every other which way.
Yeah.
But Christ to feel it.
That's right.
That's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is, man. Come on.
Right.
Good deal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Good stuff.
Any final thoughts? Anything? You good?
Am I codependent on you, or are you codependent on me?
Probably both.
I think so too.
Yeah, but you're definitely codependent on me for sure.
It depends on what specifically we're talking about.
Yeah, you're dependent for sure. Definitely codependent.
On what? What
you know what? I was going to go there. I'm not even going to go there anymore. No,
we're not going to go there.
I'm not going to do it. Well, we definitely appreciate you guys tuning in. It was a good conversation, a great topic nonetheless. And now we know what DPD?
DPD.
We know what DPD stands for.
Personality disorder.
That's exactly right. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in to the Junto Podcast. That's right, the Together Podcast. And as always, you can find us at juntopodcast.com. Subscribe, follow, comment, do something. We need you all the time.
Do it right now.
Thanks for stopping in. See you next time. Be blessed. Thank you for listening to the Junto Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find our link to YouTube and social media at juntopodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, like, and follow. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.